Luigi Mangione has been charged with murder as an act of terrorism. Mr. Mangione faces various charges, including first-degree murder and 2 counts of second-degree murder, one of which describes the killing as an act of terrorism. The intent was to sow terror. New York District Attorney Alvin Bragg said, calling this shooting a frightening, well-planned and targeted murder. Mr. Mangione is scheduled to appear for a court hearing on the 19th of December over whether he will be extradited to New York on the charges, though Mr. Bragg suggested the suspect may not fight an extradition. Mangione also faces additional charges. In addition to the state murder indictment being brought against him in New York, shooting suspect Luigi Mangione is also expected to be charged with a federal crime. 2 sources familiar with the matter told CBS, the BBC's US news partner. Mangione is expected to appear at the US District Court in Manhattan as early as today, the sources said. It is not immediately clear what federal charges Mangione could face. However, federal charges could, in theory, allow prosecutors to seek the death penalty, which has been halted in New York since 2004. At the moment, it is unclear if they will do so. The death penalty. Now, of course, that is the writer's speculation. I'm sorry, I would not be surprised. Seriously, would not be surprised if they did. Kevin, what are your thoughts that Luigi faces not just first-degree murder, but as an act of terrorism?
It's an insult to victims of actual terrorism, as far as I'm concerned. The legal basis for that prosecution may be sound. It may be that the law is just completely wrong in terms of its definition of what terrorism and what an act of terrorism is. But that's the problem of the law rather than of the act, or indeed of generally people's understanding of what terrorism is. There's no doubt that this would classify as an act of murder. I don't think anyone realistically claims it's not that, other than on a kind of moral basis as an act of self-defense, which is a larger, more philosophical point. But under legal jurisdiction, yeah, what he did was kill a man. But that's the point, I would argue, about terrorism here. Luigi Mangione, or Luigi Mangione, if you allow me to be slightly racist for a second, killed one man. The health insurance industry in America kills about 190,000 people every year. That's one 9/11 every week, on average. Who is the real terrorist here? I would argue it's Brian Thompson. Brian Thompson killed far more people. Brian Thompson and his class, his ilk, terrorize tens of millions, indeed hundreds of millions, of people across America. The 1% being scared, I would argue, actually isn't necessarily a bad thing, but regardless, that's clearly a thing that has happened as a consequence of this. Is nothing as to the terror of not knowing whether, if your kid gets sick, the insurance you have already paid for through the nose will even cover it, or whether it will be so financially crippling as to leave you and your family homeless. That is a level of terror I can only begin to imagine. He inflicted upon hundreds of thousands of people through his company, and his company had denial rates far in excess of the national and industry average. So this man was a ghoul. His death should not be mourned. His family will obviously mourn it, but no individual outside of that should possibly mourn this person. He was a terrible human being, and frankly, his death isn't a sad day because nothing of value was lost from the world, as far as I'm concerned. Luigi Mangione will be convicted of murder, and I don't think that's massively surprising. The idea that he is guilty of terrorism, however, I think is a stretch to an extreme extent, given the fact that you just had I've forgotten his name now. The white chap who killed a black
Daniel
man.
Penny.
Daniel Penny, thank you. Who killed a mentally ill black man on a subway and has not only been not found guilty, but the case was dropped against him, and the right wing have celebrated him up until the point of the incoming not prime minister, president, literally meeting him at the Army Navy football game, shaking his hand and having a picture taken, smiling with him. The idea that the system and those who support Brian Thompson give two shits about the death of supposedly innocent people, they don't. Whether it be the Wisconsin shooter or whether it be this guy or whatever, they're happy to support murder as long as it's in favour of the status quo. It's only when it begins to challenge the status quo, it's only when the person who is killed has money that they begin to give a fuck.
Just to play devil's advocate for a second.
Yeah.
This is devil's advocate. The definition of terrorism is using fear or violence to advance religious or political goals. One could say that his view on the healthcare system is political, and that's why they are trying to get him under terrorism. I mean, what would you say to that?
No, they're trying to get him under terrorism because he attacked a rich person. They could have done. I would argue, could have done that with any number of people. With what was his name? Oh god, the guy who killed 2 people in Kenosha during the BLM riots.
Kyle Rittenhouse.
Kyle Rittenhouse. My memory is appalling tonight. Kyle Rittenhouse, I would argue, under that definition, did terrorism. He's a right-wing political actor who went there looking for trouble, brought a gun that he shouldn't have, and killed 2 people. They didn't charge him with terrorism. He was charged with, murder and all that, but he wasn't, and eventually found innocent, by the way. But
which is still, to me, a huge
massive injustice,
insanely.
absolutely. But either way, he wasn't charged with terrorism because the people he killed weren't rich enough. So the system didn't care to. The system didn't feel the need to stamp down on that as to actually dissuade others from acting in the same way.
I mean, for me personally, this is absolutely about making an example. If you kill a homeless black person, Jordan Neely, which Daniel Penny did, not only do you get away with it, you're invited to meet the vice president. But going after someone powerful was a completely different story. Brian Thompson, because he's a CEO, is seen as a valuable member of society. If you're a homeless black guy with mental health issues, you are seen at the bottom of society.
Yep.
So I think that's where the response come from. And I think you can't just charge Luigi Mangione with murder. They have to make it a special case. I mean, look at the pictures now with him. Like, he's got his hands and legs tied up on chains with about 50 different police officers around him, like he's Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah.
I also do want to ask you as well. I mean, a lot of media outlets apparently there's a poll that came out and like 40% of young people supported what Luigi did. But the way they're framing it is shocking poll. And then you've got Piers Morgan say, all these people are scumbags. Which just shows how out of touch these pundits are, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, literally, Piers Morgan supported Donald Trump, a man who literally boasted about how he could go and shoot someone in a street very much adjacent to the street on which this happened, and that would be fine because he wouldn't lose any support. So the idea that he actually gives a shit about it, of course he doesn't. Of course he doesn't. The media don't care about this either. Again, nothing from the media about the 190,000 people killed by the health insurance industry every year. That's fine. Reminded of the old quote, although it is from Joseph Stalin, but still I think applicable. If you kill one man, you're a murderer. To kill 1,000 is just a statistic, right? And never, it's true. That's exactly how it is treated. It's ridiculous. Why is his one act terrorism, but Brian Thompson's countless acts of terrorism not terrorism? And for me, the perfect summation of this is the fact that the New York Police Department is going to be spending some of its money setting up a hotline strictly so that CEOs
is absolutely insane, isn't
CEO,
it? The rich and CEOs are getting special treatment.
Yeah. CEOs who are scared can ring and get advice and extra police safety and all the rest of it. And yet 90+% of rape kits in New York State go untested because lack of funds.
Well, there was, I don't know if you saw it, but there were Amazon workers that were striking.
I did see that. I literally tweeted out, and again, I will preempt you by just saying the police are scum. Never forget that.
For those in the audience who haven't seen it, there's a video clip of Amazon workers striking. And obviously they stopped Amazon lorries going out to deliver parcels. The whole point of striking is to disrupt, right? The police were called and they broke the strike to allow the trucks to leave. What you see there is the police protecting capital, protecting business interests and profits. That's why they protect CEOs. That's why they protect Amazon. And they broke a strike. That's what fundamentally, that is what the police are for.
Well, exactly. Yeah, this is why whenever some, let's be honest, FBI Fed posting piece of garbage online says, "Oh, we need to welcome police unions into the labour movement." No, we don't. They're our enemy.
as a police officer, you're told you need to go and break this strike. And if you don't do it, you're going to get in trouble and eventually fired from their job. So, like the system, the way it's built up,
Exactly.
you
Doesn't
can't,
matter
you
how
can't
good
change
they
it
are.
anyway.
Every copper has had to beat up some homeless people and drive them away. They've had to harass ethnic minorities. They've had to ignore accusations of rape because they just don't have the time or just the inclination. They know there's not going to be a prosecution. They know the tests aren't going to be tested, so why bother? Basically, they've all been involved in unbelievably heinous acts. They all know the culture within the police, which is racist, sexist, abusive, and violent, and they carry on. So I don't. If you unionize them, what you just end up with is a union of racist, violent, sexual maniacs.
Support independent media. Support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn left.